So you've been programming for a while. You already know one or maybe two different languages, but you're new to the Go programming language. How do you get that first job where they pay you to write Go? This is a question I hear all the time. And in this video, I'm going to go through the CV of somebody in this exact situation. This is their real CV, and I'm going to offer my advice on how to improve it to make it a little bit more marketable and help you land that first Go job. So if that describes you, stay tuned for my tips on writing your CV to get a first Go job. So a really big shout out to the person whose CV I'm looking at. Now, they asked to remain anonymous, so I blanked out their name and all personal identification from the CV, but it's still a big thanks to them for letting me do this, and I hope that they get their first job very soon. Let me walk through the CV and offer my first impressions, and then I'm going to get into some more detail. So at the very top here, we have this About Me section. It's not bad. On the other side here, we have the sort of keyword index, things that optimized for search engines. From there, we go to projects, and there's a long list of projects, 8 of them, all on GitHub. That's great. And then skills. So one of my first thoughts here is that the skills really belong up here with this list of keywords. They serve the same purpose for the purpose of a CV, and that is they give a really high-level overview of the things that you have experience with. They serve two purposes, I believe. One is, as I mentioned, searching. So when somebody's like, I need somebody with Oracle experience or whatever, you want that word Oracle to show up and jump out when they do a plain text search. And the second purpose they serve is for a human reading the CV to have a really high level overview of the capabilities of this person. Usually, a hiring manager or recruiter is thinking of a small list of words they're looking for. And you want those words to be as easy to find as possible when that human is looking at the document. So they should be near the top and they should be easy to find. So that's why putting the skills section down here, essentially the bottom of the first page, I think is a bad idea. It should be at the top of the page, either right next to or probably merged into the list of these sort of keywords. And then we have the employment history. And it is in reverse chronological order, which is great. I haven't looked at the bullet points yet. I'll get there. And then education. And then finally, a final paragraph on interest and recreational. And I like that. A lot of people will tell you not to put that on a CV. I do that. I mentioned on my CV that I enjoy salsa dancing and travel and things like that. But it's at the very bottom, and it's just a very brief sentence. I like it because it gives a sort of human touch. But I put it at the end because those aren't the details people are looking for at first. So I put that at the very end. It's sort of some material that can be useful to break the ice during an interview. I have had that happen where the interviewer is like, "Oh, I see you like salsa dancing. Tell me about that." And it's a nice icebreaker. But put it at the end as he's done here. So that's great. Now, let me look at the bullet points under the experience, the employment history. Mobbing sessions. This is very typical of what I see on CVs. It's just a bullet list of things that the person has done or been a part of. And it's not ideal. This isn't terrible, but it's not the best. So let me just pick out a couple examples. I'm not going to read through all of these. That would be a boring video. Let me just pick out a couple. The first one, mobbing sessions with payment and location using Golang. That doesn't tell a hiring manager or recruiter anything. The only thing I can get from that is that you have some experience with mob programming, presumably. If I, as a hiring manager, don't know what mobbing means, though, this is nonsense to me. If I do know what mobbing means, then it's a slight benefit that I know that this candidate has the experience with that, so it won't be a brand new concept if that's something we do on our team. What would be much better here is to say what the result of this was. In fact, I would probably not say mobbing here at all. If I do mention it on my CV, I would either put it under skills or in this list of keywords, and I would just put mob programming. That's it. If the recruiter or the hiring manager cares about mob programming, they're going to ask you about that anyway. Just let them know you have experience so that they know that you're not a complete newbie to that topic. And then it says with payment and location using Golang. I don't know what that means. It's too vague to be clear. And that it's using Golang is maybe valuable because that's telling us that it's about using Go, which we know that this person is trying to get a Go-related job. Talk to me instead about what you've accomplished here. And this is often difficult, but as a hiring manager, I would rather have 1 or 2 bullet points that tell me what you've accomplished than 6 or 12 telling me what you did. Now, what I mean by accomplished, what are the results of this? How did this help the team? How did it help the product? How did it help the clients? What was the result of mobbing with payment and location using Golang? That can be tricky, and it's not nearly as easy as just writing this list, which is, of course, why people write lists like this all the time. But it tells a lot more to the hiring manager. Think about it this way. The hiring manager doesn't care how many technologies you've used, how many hours you sat on your butt using the technology, etc. What they care about is how can you improve their business in some way. Can you bring more customers? Can you improve performance of their application? Can you solve security problems? Can you write features that work well and write them quickly? They care about these sorts of things. So talk about those sorts of things. If you made the system more reliable, talk about that. If you made it more stable, talk about that. If you solved security problems, talk about that. If you added a feature that thousands of users used, talk about that. Talk about the results of the things you did more than what you did or even how you did it. Those other things, the how you did it and what you did, can always come up in the interview, but everybody can write a list of 20 things that they did at their last job, technologies they used, how many committees they were on, etc. What was the result of that? Talk about the result, and you'll get a lot better conversion, so to speak, on your CVs. Of course, that's not Go-specific advice. That's true on any CV, I believe. I can't imagine an industry where that wouldn't be true. But as an experienced hiring manager for software developers, that's definitely true. Now, I want to jump back to the top here, and I'm going to look at more detail here about the About Me and these other sections here. Now, remember, this candidate is looking for a Go job specifically. And so I want to call out a couple things here that I think make this a weak CV in that regard. The About Me section says, I began my career as a full-stack software developer using various technologies. Now I work for, redacted, as a full-stack engineer. I've done functional programming with Elixir, hosting on AWS with ECS, EC2, ECR, Docker. In my free time, I use Go because it's a statically typed language with excellent error handling and tooling. For my next role, I want to be a Golang engineer. So the problem I have with this, particularly as it relates to somebody looking for a Go-related role, is that it sounds very unconfident. This sounds like I have lots of experience doing other things, and I would kind of like to switch to Go if that's okay with you, I guess. I'm exaggerating a bit, but that's kind of the impression this gives me. I would not see this as a hiring manager and think, this is the guy I want working for me to write Go. So I think this can be improved. Now, you don't want to lie on your CV, of course. That can get you in serious legal trouble. Even if it doesn't, it's just dishonest, and it's not a good way to get off on a good foot. But you don't need to lie. You don't even need to start the truth. You can just reword this in a way that emphasizes what you care about. So I wouldn't even talk about this full stack developer thing. I would just say, start with the beginning. I'm looking for a job writing Go, or I'm looking for a job as a Go engineer, something like that. Start with that. Tell us what you care about first, most. If you're even going to have this About Me section. I usually don't have that on my CV, or it's very short, like a single sentence. And I think it's useful to have a single sentence, especially if what you're looking for differs from your past experience. It can be useful to say, this is what I want. So I would probably shorten this to say simply, I'm looking for a job as a Go developer. And it's probably all I would put it in the About Me section. Nothing else. If you do want to elaborate, put that next. Put the most important thing first. And in this case, the most important thing is actually the last, which is backwards. Remember that recruiters and hiring managers have dozens or hundreds, depending on the company they're working for, of CVs to look for. You want yours to stand out as quickly as possible. You want them to filter yours on legitimate things first. So put your desire first, put your skills at the top. That's why I suggested moving the skills section here to the top. Put the important stuff first. The most important stuff should always be on the top half of the first page. And that brings me to my next point, which is I think these projects, I think it's excellent to put the projects on your CV. You absolutely should do that. I've talked about that in blog posts and other places. That's excellent. However, It should come after the employment history. The employment history is what everybody's looking for. When I'm reviewing a CV, the very first thing I look for, of course, is buzzwords, the things I'm looking for. Let's say I'm looking for a Go developer with experience writing, I don't know, maybe I'm using Echo Framework or something like that. And I'm looking for somebody with Go and Echo. I'm going to be looking for those buzzwords. Those buzzwords show up quickly. And Golang is right at the top, so that's perfect. I don't see Echo. That probably doesn't matter. What really matters is Golang, right? The next thing I'm looking for is to determine the level of seniority this candidate has. And the best way to determine that is not from the title that they've given themselves, but from their employment history. So I usually jump to their employment history, and I usually just browse through the dates and sometimes the titles. So I see that they work somewhere January 2020 to present. So that's almost, I guess that's 3 years now. And then 2019, for almost a year, they worked there, approximately 2 years, and so on. So I'm looking, and then I'm going to look for the last one, the oldest one, 2016. So based on that, I can determine how many years they have in the industry. And I'm also looking for titles, like did the job title change drastically? Were they, say, customer support for the first 5 years of their career, and then they became a developer or something like that? In this case, I see they've been a developer at every job, developer or software engineer, depending on the title, since 2016. So that tells me they have pretty good experience. Notice what I'm not looking for. I'm not looking for the use of Golang at every one of these jobs. I'm not particularly interested in which languages they used yet. I'm mostly interested in how much time have they been writing code. And I can just determine that by looking at the dates of their employment. So I'm not even looking at the bullet points yet, right? So the very first thing I'm looking for is, did they even claim to have experience in the 2 to 3 keywords I'm looking for? Golang, AWS, Docker, whatever it is. And that's why that should be at the top. Next, I'm looking for how much seniority they have. Of course, that matters depending on what I'm looking for. Do I want a junior or senior or whatever? If I'm looking for a junior and they have 15 years experience, they're probably a bad match. Also, if I'm looking for a senior and they only have 2 years experience, they might be a bad match. Not that years of experience by itself is enough, but you can sort of get a general feel that way. So this candidate has 7 years of experience since May of 2016. Writing code. So this CV has given me enough reason to keep looking. I'm looking for a Go engineer with X number of years experience, and this appears to match that. So now is when I start to look at the details. And you know what? I don't care about the projects yet. I do care about those, but not yet. What I'm going to look at next is the details of their employment history, and I'm going to start with the most recent. I'm going to look here to see what kind of impact they had, and look for clues that they are a team player, that they are good at problem solving, that they're motivated, these sorts of things. And of course, that's really hard to get from a CV, but I'm looking for clues. And honestly, those clues aren't obvious here. Upgraded Elixir app. That doesn't tell me very much. I mean, I don't know anything about Elixir. I don't know how difficult it is to upgrade from 1.7 to 1.11, or from Phoenix Web Framework 1.20 to 1.5. That sounds like just menial labor. Maybe it's not. Maybe this is a really difficult problem. But if that's the case, talk about that. Explain why this was a challenge and how it benefited the company. But just telling me upgraded dependencies doesn't sound like difficult work. It doesn't sound like rewarding work. It doesn't sound like business impacting work. Development of staff mobile app using React Native for 17,000 users. This one starts to get close. The fact that there's 17,000 users is interesting. That tells me it's neither just a toy app, with 6 users, nor is it something like Facebook with millions or billions of users. But I would expand on this. I mean, in telling me that you developed an app with 17,000 users isn't that enlightening in terms of your skills and what you've done. So I would find some way to elaborate on this point. I would probably drop the upgraded one. Releases for software in our domain using various tools. That doesn't tell me anything. I don't know if you are writing Terraform and AWS configurations, or if this is just something that someone else wrote and you just typed the command or hit the button that executed that. This tells me nothing. I would delete this unless you can really substantiate it with more information. Mentoring and pair programming, that's good. That's a really good one to put in there. That tells me that you are motivated to teach what you know, which is something I look for at least, especially in a senior type engineer. I'm not going to go through all these. The point is that I'm looking for clues that you're a motivated and capable engineer in here. So pick the points that most point that out. Now, after that, once I'm fairly confident that you're not going to be a terrible hire, which is really all I'm looking for right now, right? At the first stage when I'm reviewing your CV, I'm just trying to filter out the terrible options. Once I'm convinced that you're not a terrible option, then I start to look for clues that you might be a great option, and that's where these projects come in. So I do like putting these projects on your CV, but like I said, they should go near the end because that's kind of the end of my thought process. So help your hiring managers out. Put the important stuff at the top and the less important stuff at the bottom. So I wouldn't drop these projects. I might do fewer of them because 8 is a large number. I would probably pick between 1 and 3 that you're really proud of and put those on your CV. And otherwise, I would just put a link to your GitHub profile on your CV at the top. And then anybody who really wants to dig can go find those others. With 8, very few people are going to be going to the effort to look at all 8 of these unless they're super interested, and then they're going to your profile anyway. So just pick 1 to 3 that you're most proud of, that you think are maybe most current and most relevant to the job you're looking for, and put those directly on your CV, and otherwise link to your GitHub profile. That will shorten the CV, also make it shorter, makes it easier to review. Now, when I was interacting with the person who wrote the CV, I made the comment that the way it's written right now, it sounds like he's a professional software developer, but a Go hobbyist. Now, he responded honestly to me, and he said, one thing I would say is I technically am just a Go hobbyist at the moment. And that's probably technically true, but the only difference between a hobbyist and a professional is a paycheck. Are you being paid to do the thing? Then you're not a hobbyist anymore. Now, from the perspective of a hiring manager or recruiter, it doesn't matter if you're a hobbyist or being paid to write Go. What matters is, can you write Go and help my business? So if you are stuck in this mentality that you're just a hobbyist right now, you've only been doing Go on side projects or at home, get out of that trap. You are not a hobbyist. You're just a Go programmer who hasn't been paid yet. Think about it that way. Can you help the company achieve their goals using Go? That's all that matters. It doesn't matter if you've been paid before, if you've been underpaid or overpaid. It doesn't matter. What matters is, can you help them achieve their goals? And if you believe that you can, and if they believe that you can, then you're probably a good match. So that's all that matters, right? Can you help them achieve their goals? Now, I'm happy to report that the person who wrote this CV took my feedback and that from a few other people, and they edited their CV. And I'm going to show you their updated version. I still have some suggested improvements for this, but it's a big improvement already. So let's look at their new updated version. So the first thing to notice at the top is that Go Engineer was added as a title. I love that, especially since that's what this person's looking for. They're looking for a Go job. Just advertise your Go Engineer. Perfect. Again, this person sees himself as a Go hobbyist now, but that doesn't matter. A hobbyist engineer can still be an engineer. You're writing Go. You can help the business achieve its goals. Great. The About Me section has been reordered. The very first sentence is much better. Golang engineer looking for a new challenge in the next chapter of his career. And then it does go on. Experienced software engineer with a decade of experience, blah, blah, blah. Team player with proven track record of success. That last sentence probably doesn't need to go here. We actually had a long discussion about this, me and others who were reviewing the CV. And I think the consensus was right that doesn't really add value. It's kind of a cliche at this point. So I would probably delete that, unless you can add some substantial concreteness to that statement. If you can say exactly how you're a team player, that you built a team from scratch, or that you mentored a team of 16 engineers, or whatever, even 3 engineers, whatever. If you can make it more concrete, it might be worth keeping. But as it is now, it doesn't actually convey any information. It just sounds like a cliche. So either delete it or make it much more clear. Moving the skills section to the top right is much better, but now the page looks a bit crowded. I would really look to combine these 2 bullet point lists, the keyword list in the middle and the skills on the right, into a single list. And I would probably do that with just keywords, honestly. I would probably take the keywords out of the list on the right and put them in the list on the left. So things like CRUD and APIs, maybe REST is a good keyword there. I would probably delete Golang idioms and design patterns. I think that's well enough covered under Golang. You don't need that both there. Reading and writing files, I wouldn't put that there. And hopefully you know how to do that anyway, because that's done in practically every language, unless you're only a front-end developer maybe. Use of channels and Go routines, I would leave that out. That should be covered under Go. So I'd probably just delete the majority of the skills list that was at the bottom, now it's at the top, which is better. I'd go a step further and delete that. And any pieces you think that that still belong on the CV, just put them into the bullet list. Maybe unit testing is a good one. That's something that sadly a lot of engineers don't have experience with. So calling that out can be worthwhile. I'd probably just call out unit testing and maybe CRUD if you want. CRUD is such a basic level skill set these days that I would really expect somebody with 7 years of experience to already have CRUD experience. So I probably would leave that out, but that's a judgment call. And then the employment history is next, much better. And some of the descriptions have been changed. Developing system in the stock domain, team to improve data accuracy, reduce wastage. So that's good. Now, it doesn't put a whole lot of numbers on here. Like, I don't know how much you reduced wastage or saved money, but the fact that you're talking about the impact is a big improvement. And then over 500 restaurants. So that gives me some sense of scope that you're doing something that affects 500 restaurants. That's great. That's much better than the earlier version. Helped improve location API written in Golang, enabling restaurant to update their own data. That's great. So I'm not going to go through all the details, but in general, I would say that this has improved. Some of the items are still the same. Development of staff mobile app using React Native for 17,000 users. Same comments as before. I won't go over that again. But this is definitely improved. The projects are now listed at the bottom. There's 5 of them rather than 8, so that's an improvement. 5 is still a little bit on the heavy side, but that's a judgment call. You decide which ones are most important to call out your experience, and then the rest is great. I think the CV is much improved. There's still room to improve further. There always is, but this is a huge improvement to begin with. What's even more exciting is that the person who wrote the CV told us on the channel where we were discussing this that they had already, the same day as making these changes, received an invitation for their first interview with an updated version of the CV. So that's great. As I recall, they had dozens of rejections before, not even getting interviews. So the fact that they got one interview, it's a small data set, but it's a positive one. Just making these changes apparently already made a big impact on their job search. I hope that you can take some tips out of this. If you would like me to review your CV like this on the channel, let me know. I'd be happy to do that. I can do it anonymously like this one, or I can leave your name. Leave a comment below, or head over to boldlygo.tech, where you can find all my contact information, including my email address. I'd love to review your CV. And of course, if you're still learning Go or trying to improve your Go skills so you can land that first Go job, you will probably appreciate my daily newsletter. Head over to boldlygo.tech/daily. There you can subscribe for my 5 days a week Go tips and suggestions. Right now, I'm going through a series breaking down the Go spec in easy to understand pieces. So every day I talk about a different part of the Go spec in order, and I've been getting great feedback from people so far. They're really enjoying the series. I hope you will join me and enjoy the series too. Until next time, boldly go.